Hey friends, my name is Amish and today I'll tell you how to write formulas of polyatomic ions, okay? So let's begin. So guys, first I'll tell you what's a polyatomic ion. So basically a polyatomic ion is what happens when a bunch of atoms connect together to form a large clump, okay? And poly basically means many and atomic basically means atoms. So polyatomic means many atoms connected together to form a large clump, and that clump is called basically a polyatomic ion. And that clump also has a charge because it's an ion, so it has a charge, a negative or a positive charge. And yeah, so so when two or more atoms join together to form a large clump, that's called a polyatomic ion. Okay, so now I'll tell you how to write the formulas of polyatomic ions. So guys, this is basically a list of polyatomic ions. Uh, so we have a list over here. So nitrite, nitrate, NO3 minus, sulfite, sulfate. So basically this list, uh, you need to memorize it, okay? You need to memorize this list or the list that your teacher has provided you with or the list which is in your textbook of your school, okay? So you need to memorize. There's no way of like working out the charges by yourself. So you need to memorize them, okay? Uh, so I'll explain you what this actually means. So nitrate has a formula of NO3 minus, okay? This basically means that one nitrogen atom forms a clump with three oxygen atoms. So basically one nitrogen atom sort of connects with three oxygen atoms to form NO3, and that's basically a clump because it's a polyatomic ion because it has many atoms connected together. So that's called a polyatomic ion, and it has a charge of -1. Okay, so let's see again. This means that one nitrogen atom forms a clump with three oxygen atoms, and this whole thing, these four atoms together, have a charge of 1 minus or -1. Okay, phosphate has a formula of PO4 3 minus. Okay, so phosphate is over here, yeah, over here. So PO4 3 minus. This basically means that sorry, one phosphorus atom forms a clump with four oxygen atoms in a big group, and that group of atoms is basically called a phosphate ion, and it has a charge of 3 minus. Okay, uh, so yeah, so since we are talking about polyatomic ions, the compounds we are going to write, we are going to be writing formulas for are all ionic compounds, which means that we are going to have to find out what the charges in both these things are in order to write the formula. So these are basically all ionic compounds, okay, because you are working with polyatomic ions. So now I'll give you some examples, okay. Basically now guys you'll learn to write the formula of calcium nitrate, okay. So the first thing is that you need to look at the periodic table, okay? Because for something like calcium, you can search it up in the periodic table in order to find out what its charge is, okay? So calcium is in group 2, okay? It's in group 2, and since it's in group 2, that means it has a charge of +2 or 2 plus, okay? So it has a charge of +2. And the second thing is that you'll need a list of polyatomic ions, uh, and in the exam you obviously cannot take a list with you and they will not provide you with the list, but what you should do is you should memorize these, okay. You should memorize these, as I said, the ones which are in your textbook of your school or which your teacher has provided you with. You can ask your teacher like uh, which ones of the polyatomic ions you need to learn depending on your exam board, but um, so you, because there are lots of polyatomic ions and you cannot memorize all of them, and you don't need to memorize all of them, but you need to memorize the popular ones or which are in your syllabus, okay. So do ask your teacher. So you need a periodic table, you need a list of polyatomic ions, and then let's begin this. So write the formula of calcium nitrate. So first we need to find what's the charge in calcium. As I said, it's in group 2, so it has a charge of +2. And then step 4 is find out what's the charge in nitrate. So as you can see in the table, in the polyatomic ion table, you can search nitrate here, and it has a formula of NO3 and a charge of -1. Okay, so NO3 minus, if it just says minus and there's no number written in front of minus, that means -1. If there's only plus and there's no like number written in front of plus, so it means +1. Okay, So nitrate has a charge of -1, so you just write calcium, then you put a charge of +2, you write NO3 and which is nitrate, and the charge is -1. Okay, so the question you should ask yourself is that do the positive and negative charges balance out? The answer is no, because calcium has a charge of +2 and nitrate has a plus of -1. So there's an imbalance of charges. The charges, the positive and the negative charges should be equal in order to be balanced, okay? But they are not. So charges do not balance out because we have 2 plus in the calcium but only 1 minus from the nitrate. This means that we need to add more of either calcium ion or nitrate ion until we get the charges to balance, okay? So we obviously need to add nitrate ion because nitrate has a charge of -1 and calcium has a charge of +2. So we need 2 of nitrates in order to balance out the calcium. We need 2 -1s to balance out a +2 because 2 -1s equals -2. So -2 balances out +2 of calcium. Since we have 2 plus of calcium ion and 1 minus of nitrate, we are going to add another one nitrate. So 2 minus in total, as we have 2 nitrates each of charge -1. Okay, so this will balance out, and now I'll tell you the formula of it. Okay, so I just continued on the next slide. So what the formula of calcium nitrate? So we said that we need 2 nitrates in order to balance out the +2 of calcium ion. So we have 2 nitrates, and now the charges balance out. So these 2 nitrates balance out the calcium ion. So now we will write this in a chemical formula that shows why many of uh, that shows how many of each we have in order to balance out the charges. We need 1 calcium and 2 nitrates. Yeah, and one important thing to note is that for polyatomic ions, if we have more than one polyatomic ion, so in this case we have more than one, we have 2 nitrates. Nitrate is a polyatomic ion and we have 2 of nitrates. So if you have more than one polyatomic ion, 2, 3, 4, you need to use parentheses, which means brackets. You need to put the number in brackets. I'll tell you how. So here's this chemical formula of calcium nitrate. You write Ca, you just write Ca, you don't put the charge, you just write Ca. And there's no number in front of Ca, so that means we have 1 calcium. Um, and then you write NO3, and then you put brackets and you write 2 because we have 2 nitrates, okay? So you put bracket, it's called parentheses, and for polyatomic ions you put the number after the brackets. So after the brackets you put a small number at the bottom of the bracket, okay? At the bottom after the bracket. So we have Ca, NO3, 2. So this is balanced out, okay? So 2 nitrates balance out 1 calcium, so this is how we write it, okay? Now I'll tell you how to write the formula of sodium carbonate, okay? So the working out is that, so we need 2 sodium ions to balance out the 2 minus charge of carbonate. So carbonate, if you look at the table of polyatomic ions, carbonate has a formula of CO3 and it has a charge of 2 minus. So we're at CO3 2 minus, but we need 2 NAs to balance out the 2 minus because each Na has a charge, each sodium ion has a charge of +1. So we need 2, so that becomes +2, and +2 balances out the 2 minus of carbonate. So remember that we don't need to use brackets now because we only have one polyatomic ion. We only need to use brackets when you have 2 or more polyatomic ions, okay? So what you do is you write Na2 CO3 because we have two sodiums. Remember, we have two sodiums, 2 sodium ions. We have 2 sodiums, and you write Na, and then you write 2, and then there's only one polyatomic ion. There's only one carbonate, so you just write CO3. Okay, you don't put the parentheses. You don't use the brackets. So this is how you write the formula of sodium carbonate. Okay, I'll tell you how to write the formula of ammonium sulfate. So remember that you don't need to use the periodic table now because both ammonium and sulfate are polyatomic ions. So you won't find them in the periodic table. And many students confuse this thing. You should remember that you can never find a polyatomic ion on the periodic table. You just need to memorize them. Just ask your teacher as soon as possible, okay? So both ammonium and sulfate are polyatomic ions. We don't need to look at the periodic table. Ammonium, if you look at the table, ammonium has a formula of NH4 and it has a charge of +1, okay? So if we have NH4 plus 1, uh, there's no number written in front of the plus, so that means it's plus 1. Okay. And sulfate, if you look at the table, it has SO4 and the charge is 2 minus. So we have NH plus 4, NH4 plus, and SO4 2 minus. So charges are not balanced because we need two NH4s to balance out one SO4 2 minus. Because see, the charge is plus 1 and here is 2 minus. So we need two of these that will make it plus 2 to balance out one of these. Okay. So you just write the formula. You write NH4, you put bracket, you write 2, and then you write SO4 because we need two of NH4s to balance out one of SO4. Okay. So I'll just explain this. So uh, we need two of NH4 because this would make it plus 1, and another NH4 also has a charge of plus 1. So if we add both these together, uh, oops, just a second. So if we add both these together, then that becomes plus 2. And SO4 already has a charge of minus 2. SO4. So these are balanced out, so we need two NH4. So you write NH4, you put a bracket, you write 2 after it because it's a polyatomic ion, and then you just write SO4. Okay. So now this is a tricky example. Anyhow, I'll tell you the call for action. You need to practice these. You like watching my videos. Just watching my videos won't help. You need to actually practice this on paper. Okay. So just keep practicing. Because as you know, practice makes a man perfect. So just keep practicing. So this is now I'll tell you how to write the formula of calcium phosphate. This is a tricky example. So be careful. Be attentive. Okay. So calcium, you can search it up on the periodic table. uh, Calcium is in group 2, so it means it has a charge of plus 2. And phosphate, if you look at the table, again you need to memorize these polyatomic ions. So if you look at the table, phosphate has a formula of PO4 and the charge is 3 minus. So PO4, so I'll just write it at the bottom. So calcium has a charge of plus 2, and phosphate has a charge of minus 3 or 3 minus. It's the same thing. So how do we balance these out? How do we balance these out? We can only balance these out if we have two phosphates, because two phosphates would mean 3 minus plus 3 minus, right? So we have 3 minus and 3 minus, that would make it minus 6. If we add these, yeah, that would make it minus 6 charge. If we have two phosphates, that would make it minus 6. But and if we have one calcium, that would make it plus 2. So we need to balance out the minus 6. So what we can do is we can have three calciums, because plus 2 plus 2 times 3 is plus 6. So plus 6 balances out the minus 6. So if you look at this, we have plus 2 plus 1 calcium, 2 plus another calcium, and the third calcium ion also has 2 plus. So if we add all these charges together, that would make it plus 6. So if we have 3 calciums and 2 phosphates, that means that the ions would be balanced out. Okay. So just see here, I have 3 calciums and I have 2 phosphates, because 3 minus 3 times 2 is minus 6, and 2 times 3 plus 2 times 3 is plus 6. So these balance out. So we have 2 PO4s give a total charge of 6 minus, and 3 calciums give a total charge of 6 plus. So chemical formula of calcium phosphate, we have 3 calciums, that would be Ca3. Remember, we did not put brackets. I did not put brackets in front of the calcium because calcium is not a polyatomic ion. Calcium, you can find it in the periodic table. If it's an element, uh, then you don't need to put a bracket. You only put brackets if it's a polyatomic ion. Okay. So we have Ca3 and then PO4, and you put bracket and you write a 2 after it, because we have two PO4s and PO4 is a polyatomic ion, so you put brackets. Okay, so Ca3PO4 2 is the chemical formula of calcium phosphate. So there's a popular question that students ask me, and that's that can we figure out what the charges are on polyatomic ions, and how are we supposed like to know them? Like how can we know the charges? How can we work out the charges on polyatomic ions? The simple answer is that it's almost impossible to figure out the charges. The only thing you can do is to memorize them. I don't like to tell students to memorize stuff. I like to teach the rules, and I like to teach the concepts. I like to teach the methods. But the problem is that polyatomic ions is one of the few things in chemistry that you need to memorize. And you should ask your teacher as soon as possible that what polyatomics are, like what polyatomic ions are in your syllabus, and which one of them you should memorize. So you can memorize them, and then you should just practice, 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 practice. Okay, and then you'll easily memorize them in a day or two if you keep practicing. Okay, so you need to memorize them. That's the thing. So guys, best of luck for your exams. I wish you all the best for your exams, and thanks for watching my video. And please like, subscribe, click on the bell icon, and comment and share the video. I would really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye bye.